You're now listening to Blerdkast, presented to you by Blerdography.
I can see that. I can see that. I gotta say, actually I like getting up early. That's why I'm happy I left overnight because man, the way I be missing vitamin C, vitamin D. I missed the sun rays.
You know what? You can keep the sun rays. I'll keep my orange juice and clementine oranges to get my
The
vitamins.
oranges, the Clementine
Yep.
oranges.
Yep. Hey, I gotta get that calcium in somehow, whatever the sun rays and stuff.
Whatever,
Um,
whatever it's made of.
whatever is right, whatever it's made of. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to have you again.
Yeah.
We like I think you just became my best friend just because of how nerdy you are. And just like how in tune you are to know nerd culture. I didn't even get to ask you the one question I wanted to ask you when we was talking about the misogynistic aspects of it. So
Mm,
last question, this will just be a bonus for anyone who stayed to listen for 2 hours. Growing up for me,
mhm,
I grew up with nerd friends, but again, mostly male friends.
mm,
And there were not a lot of women who were interested in the nerdy things like anime, cartoons, video games, and things of that nature. And now at my ripe old age of 36, and now that nerd culture has been accepted by the masses, outside of it just generally being accepted within Black culture, the one thing that has been confusing the ever loving crap out of me is where did all the Black women come from that are now into nerd culture? Because y'all was not there 20 years ago. I looked under rocks, I looked behind closets, I looked under TV stands. It was like maybe one or two of y'all, but y'all always had a boyfriend or something. Don't get me wrong, don't care. I just wanted y'all to be there for the company because sausage fest is always a sausage fest. Sometimes you need,
always sausage fest. Sometimes you need something to break it up.
yes.
But I mean, I can't personally say I understand the sentiment truthfully because growing up, I grew up it like I've always been a nerd and I had a very diverse like most of my nerd friends were white, but I mean we were a very diverse group of we were co-ed group, so we had boys and girls in it. As I got older, I've heard the sentiment before, but I truly either I think that it's 50-50. So there's a section of men, I think, that were scaring the hoes or scaring the maidens. Um, and perhaps they themselves were not in a space in which girls wanted to cohabitate in the same space. I think also it could be a sense of maybe you just weren't in a space to accept that the women around you were into that. And then in other cases, it could just be straight plain old masking. A lot of women for fear of being like quiz. Like I remember the era. I think it still happens occasionally, but not like it used to. Like I remember distinctly like being 15 years old and someone quizzing me, asking me detailed questions about a Naruto episode that came out 2 weeks ago. Um, and that's really off-putting for anybody. Like no one wants to be quizzed on their favorite thing, and no one wants to be asked 150 questions about something that they may or may not be interested in. And then of course there's like the invalidation of nerdy interests that don't align with like shonen anime, even though there's a ton of women who love shonen anime, but there are a lot of women who like shojo and a lot of women who like seinen or who like josei, and that's not mainstream. There are a lot of women who are into comic books but maybe just weren't into super big storylines. They just like the cute stuff. Um, and there's like an invalidation of like liking the cutesy, more adorable side of like nerd culture. Like even today, like people are always like, "Oh, you're not a real gamer. You just like cozy games," as if there aren't developers and people spending hours, building assets for a cozy game, as if it's not valid. So I think there's like different camps. Either A, you're scaring the hoes. B, you quite frankly were just in such an encapsulated community that maybe you just didn't notice those women around you, or C, maybe the women in that community didn't feel comfortable enough exposing themselves to you for fear of for being ridiculed. All three of those things. Me personally, my experience, I had a wonderful co-ed group. Yeah, they're a little bit racist, but sometimes that happens in this spaces, being a Black nerd. But I had a co-ed space, and as I got older, like I said, I've always, I think even in my early ages, I lived a very bombastic life. I'm always been 100% a nerd everywhere I worked, everywhere I walked. I don't think I could hide it even if I tried. So me personally, I haven't had that experience, but I've heard the sentiment multiple times, and I feel for you. I really do. I feel for the guys because I'm just like, damn, you went this whole time without a singular lady, without a singular femme presenting person in your space. Like I can imagine how jarring that might be, but we've definitely always been here, in one form or fashion.
I have stories. Probably have to make that an after dark version of the podcast. But I have stories, a lot of weird things, situations. But I get it. I get it. For a woman who's into nerd culture, why would you want to be around a bunch of 14 and 15-year-old boys who are in the
Thank you.
middle of their puberties and making fart jokes and penis jokes and talking about
Smelling,
pregnancy?
saying hyper, and also just like the so I'm like I said, we might have to have like I definitely don't mind hosting an after dark version because I love me a good grimy story. But back in the day, like I'm a true child of the internet. I mean that full heartedly. I've been everywhere. I've been on Reddit since an early age. I was a 4chaner for a hot minute. Like I've been on some places. And truthfully, in those spaces, some spaces are super inclusive, but a lot of those spaces are very like anti-women. They don't really make themselves a comfortable space for ladies. Women like to be comfortable. Hell, not women and non-men like to be comfortable. Femmes like to be comfortable, and it's really hard to feel comfortable in a space that is inherently, even if it's not outwardly trying to be misogynistic, but they have a lot of misogynistic views for whatever reason. I think a good iteration of that kind of shows like current day power scalers, like those that community of people that all they do is debate who's the most powerful character. That doesn't make a very comfortable space to have conversations about your favorite thing if we're only talking about how powerful the character is. There's 1,000 other conversations could be having about anime, thousands of the conversations we could be having about create comic book characters that don't include how powerful they are. It's just I don't think those places were very inclusive to women and non-men, which is probably why they weren't interested in hanging around you. And if you're now in your, not saying you specifically, but like a lot of these creators in their 30s, like I've seen a lot of TikToks and Instagrams, oh, you guys don't really like nerdy men. I'm not saying that you're delusional. I'm just saying that like what maybe you should look internally and ask yourself the question, what is it about my community that may be unsafe or may be unsavory for women and non-men? What is it about my space that wouldn't be inclusive to those people? Maybe that's the reason why they're not there, because someone's not in my space. I have to ask the question, why aren't you in my space? It's something that I'm doing to make you not feel comfortable, and then I address that. So that's all that is.
We're definitely 1000% will be continuing this podcast next Monday, same time.
Okay.
Because like it's just again, like you're so fascinating of a person to talk to. And like even with that answer you just gave, it's so much to unpack. We will literally be sitting here talking all night until one of us have to go. Just like debating these things because like you're right. You are absolutely right. In what you said. But I do have a rebuttal to that. So
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it
no,
in the chat.
no, no. I've definitely got time this time next Monday. So for sure, absolutely.
All right,
No
cool.
problem.
I love talking to fascinating people. This is why I'm so glad I started this channel because I've gotten to meet and know so many cool and interesting people that otherwise I would have never bothered to reach out to if it wasn't for the simple fact that I just want to get to know you and tell your story.
Mm,
But
that's good stuff.
yeah, anyway, this has been Blerdkast, everybody. I'm sorry, this has been a very fascinating episode of Blerdkast. I hope you find this to be enjoyable. Please check out my guest Ty, Black and Culture on her social media platforms. All links will be in the description. And I'm going to end this right now so I don't ask another question and we go on for another 30 minutes. So everybody be safe out there. And we will continue this. We will continue this.
Mhm.
But See y'all later. Hit up the comments, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. But hit up the comments. This was a good one.